Welcome to another episode of OG55. I got Mr. Seymour Duck and the Italiano with me today. We are talking about the tariffs, the tariff war, and how it will impact Disney, entertainment, all that good stuff that we talk about. Usually, how this tariff war is going to impact the things that we love. We're going to talk about it up next here on OG55. Welcome on board, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We're talking about the tariff war and how it might impact Disney and entertainment in general. We're going to break it down. Before we do, I got the Italiano with me today. George, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you could also check out my new YouTube channel, Citrico Central, sister channel to Orange Grove 55. And don't worry, folks, with this video, nothing controversial here.
Yeah, exactly. No, nothing at all. Mr. Seymour Duck, always good to have you on, brother. We love nerding out with you. Where can everybody find you on social media, Seymour?
Yeah, and I love nerding out with you guys as well. Yeah, you can find me at X at Mr. Seymour Duck or my website, mrduck.social, for all my social media links.
There he is. All right, now, Seymour, you brought a great video to my attention, sort of explaining the tariff situation, because a lot of our audience might not really understand what it is. So you want to set the table for that video I'm about to play before we break it down?
Yeah, it's a video that I saw that Mark Cuban was sharing on X, and it basically I shared it to a few friends, and to give me their thoughts, and it really helps explain what's the situation with tariffs and how the impact of tariffs does with businesses and especially small businesses.
Okay, interesting. Well, let's play the video, and on the other end of that video, we're going to talk about it and how it all ties into this nerdy thing that we love. Here we go.
Employees and has created fully convertible high heel technology. Where do you manufacture? Our product is obviously really unique, and so we require specialty injection molding, which is only really available at scale for footwear in China.
Why? Don't you manufacture in the USA?
So we actually don't have scaled footwear manufacturing or really apparel manufacturing of any kind in the US.
Okay, well, I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really great. We'd be able to manufacture in much faster times and have more direct control over our supply chain, but we physically don't have manufacturers here.
Okay, well, what if I change your import rate from 10% to 99%?
We still wouldn't have US manufacturers here.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it right now.
Why?
Look, I don't think we should be so reliant on China, so if you're gonna insist on manufacturing in China, I'm gonna charge you 99%.
Okay, to be clear, I'm not insisting on manufacturing in China. That it's just the only place I could manufacture.
So, not the USA?
No, not right now. I mean, if you want to like invest in making some manufacturing facilities, it would probably take a couple years and several $1 million. But if you want to do that, I mean, we could talk about it when those are ready.
No, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna do it right now.
But I mean, a 60 to 99% tariff could like bankrupt a lot of businesses.
You should have thought about that before you started manufacturing in China.
Again, there's not really anywhere else that could manufacture a product like that's what they specialize in as an economy.
Okay, well, what about, like, I don't know, Vietnam? Can you go to Vietnam? That would be better than China.
Well, as people in retail will tell you, it's actually not that simple. It's not apples to apples, because like a production minimum in China is 200 pairs per shoe, for instance, and in Vietnam it would be 3,000 pairs per shoe, because unlike China, they don't have their own material suppliers, and so they have to import all the materials from China still to just make them in Vietnam, and so it only makes sense to import them at that cost if they're doing it in bulk. So small brands that can't make 3,000 pairs per run would get squished.
What I'm hearing is I should also tariff Vietnam.
That's really not what I'm trying to say.
actually, why don't I just tariff everywhere and everything so that you have to make it in America?
Again, that's not really an option.
Look, if you're not manufacturing in America, you should be punished for that, okay? So maybe just pay the tariff, all right?
Okay, but business models are fundamentally built on product cost, and a 99% tariff would double our product cost, so it would fundamentally change our entire business.
That is really sounding like a you problem.
Okay, I mean, I guess I can try to figure it out. We already had to figure out, how to pivot through the pandemic and supply chain crisis and the last trade war and the recession. So, I mean, I can do another pivot. I can.
Great, cool. Yeah, you do that.
Would it be possible for me to get an SBA small business loan in the interim so that I can have some cash cushion while we figure this out?
Are you profitable?
Yes, we posted 18% profit last year.
Is your business doing well?
We grew 85% last year.
Are you creating U.S. jobs?
Yes, I have 12 employees and they're all U.S. citizens.
Okay, are you a U.S. owned business?
Yes, every owner over 20% is a U.S. citizen. In fact, 98.3% of the ownership is U.S. citizens.
Whoa. That doesn't sound like 100.
We do have 1.7% owned by a foreign investor.
Can you give me their U.S. Social Security number?
No, they're foreign.
Okay, well then obviously I have to assume they are a foreign adversary and a massive threat to our country.
No, they do business with the United States all the time.
I obviously don't believe that, and so I want you to prove that 100% of the shareholders in your registered Delaware C Corporation are U.S. citizens. I think you should have to get all of their social.
That's not the law. The law for a small business association loan is just owners over 20% have to be citizens.
Yeah, I'm gonna change the law.
Wait. What if I buy out the foreign shareholder?
No, I think that sounds like fraud. That sounds fake. That sounds like a scam. And so we're gonna enforce a 6-month ownership look back. And so if you buy them out today, I'm not even gonna care for at least 6 months.
So, what am I supposed to do exactly?
Just manufacture in America.
Okay, fantastic video, Mr. Seymour Duck. And you're right, that really kind of encapsulates what is going on right now. So with that setting the table, we are going to...
Which pretty much explains how our U.S. government thinks as well.
Yes. And this is courtesy of the Disney Tourist blog by Tom Bricker, friend of the channel. We love Tom. Bob Iger warns of tariffs' impact on Disney's $60 billion expansion plans after President Trump announced expansive tariffs on the U.S. On the United States' largest trading partners. CEO Bob Iger warned of the negative impact on the country and Disney's businesses as a result. This covers what the CEO said, plus our preliminary thoughts on the ramifications for Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the cruise lines, etc. Says here, during a surprise appearance at ABC News Daily editorial meeting, Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger sounded the alarm on the announced Liberation Day tariffs. The U.S. already begun collecting the across-the-board unilateral 10% tariff on all imports from many countries on Saturday, with higher levies on goods from 57 larger trading partners due to start on April 9th. These higher reciprocal tariff rates of 11% to 50% are calculated by taking the country's trade deficit with the U.S., divided by its exports, then divided by 2. Under the so-called reciprocal formula, European Union exports will face a 20% tariff, and Chinese goods will be hit with a new 34% tariff, bringing the total levies on China to 54%. Says here, in response, Disney CEO Bob Iger expressed concern about the impact on impending trade war may have on not just the company, but the American economy as a whole. Iger emphasized that relocating overseas manufacturing to the U.S. Speedily is impossible. Iger also, which is true. I mean, it takes a time to do this. Iger also suggested that most people, quote, don't really understand how tariffs work, end quote. Iger also said that many major companies rely on specialized workers who would need to be replaced and trained domestically, which couldn't conceivably happen quickly. okay, which is what that little video, Seymour, that you showed us kind of alluded to, right? The CEO pointed to Apple's Foxconn plants in China, which employ hundreds of thousands of highly specialized workers, noting that it wouldn't be possible to simply replicate their skill level overnight domestically. Anonymous staffers who were present at the meeting in New York City told Darcy that Iger's comments appeared to be his push for ABC News to connect the dots for readers and viewers. Seymour, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this, man? What do you think this is going to mean for Disney? Iger seems pretty concerned.
Well, as Bob Iger's yes man, I agree with him. I actually no, for real though, I do agree with him. I agree, and I'm not saying that tariffs are bad. I believe tariffs are good when it's protecting assets of a company, right? Not a company, country, from those companies to ensure that the economy can still create cash flows. For example, like Japan, they have tariffs on rice because they want to protect rice coming in from that, from other countries because the economy's cash flow, runs through rice money. So the same thing with the US, with Tesla, Ford, GM, they have tariffs on Chinese cars so that the cheap cars that are produced in China doesn't flood the US market and basically hurt those jobs. So I'm not against tariffs. I'm pro tariffs when it's right, but unfortunately, the current administration. I know, I trying not to be political, but it's very hard to not be political. But unfortunately, current administration put blanket tariffs, meaning everything, and now it's like you have to produce it in the U.S. or you get a tax rate essentially and it will be a tax rate to the business, and the small businesses, like we said in the video, will probably just go out of business, unfortunately. And the bigger businesses will have to take that in and put it higher priced. And the consumers, will be affected. And it's not good. And like Bob Iger said, I agree with him. It'll take years for it to happen. You can't just magically, like in the video, there's no places for things to make the iPhone. How are we going to do it? And in the meantime, are we going to get tariffed for all the iPhones? And that's going to hurt Apple. And then Apple will have to lay off people from the Apple store because people can't afford the new iPhones. And you're just screwing the American business. The richest company in the world is American. And then you're hurting the workers because they're no longer can work because nobody's buying them. And then the consumers can't afford them. So you're screwing 3 times the people. And that's not good. It's like a big sloppy mess. And unfortunately, I'm production in the US, I'm not against it. But if it's done right, if you speak with the companies, if you speak with the countries, make sure you have a plan. But everything feels like it was just here you go, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Now, as Disney fans, we got exciting news recently that, at D23, we got all this expansion stuff. We're coming to Walt Disney World, coming to Disneyland Resort. The cruise line is vastly expanding. We're gonna have 14 ships, George, if I'm not mistaken. 13 at the end of the day, 13 ships, and all of that now is kind of a little bit in question. I'm not saying they're going to cancel all this stuff because of the tariffs, but it does put a monkey wrench in the whole situation. I've said it many times. I'm not sold on Josh D'Amaro. I'm just not. You know what I'm saying? He didn't do a whole lot before he was starting to become a serious contender for CEO. Now that he's a serious contender for CEO, suddenly now he wants to invest, and there's a big push for that. Well, I feel like this tariff stuff sort of hands him a big excuse on a silver platter to cut back or to delay. I don't like that. I really don't like that at all. I mean, Bob Iger saying that this could raise the cost of construction and the cruise lines could be impacted. So as a parks fan, I'm really, really concerned that this is going to impact our expansions and what have you. Maybe they won't cancel these expansions, but maybe scale them back, and like you said, Seymour, it's a sloppy mess. Yes, it's good to have to incentivize jobs in America. I'm 1,000% for that. But you know what? You don't just do it willy-nilly like this. And like you were saying, Seymour, you guys figure it out. That's not how you handle it. It's a recipe for disaster. I would be shocked if this sticks, because I think even a lot of Republicans are not really on board with this. It's a risky move. But George, what say you, brother?
Yeah, it's no matter how much you slice it, you end up with the pit at the end, so to speak. It's right now we're just at a time where we're trying to get up on our feet as an economy, especially after the pandemic and the shutdown and everything. And now we're going to be thrown in with another obstacle of like how even businesses are going to be able to function. I mean, as of right now, the price of eggs is astronomical. I mean, you go into a restaurant, for instance, like you go into Denny's, it's like almost $4 for like one egg, and they charge you a 50-cent egg plate, so to speak. So you're almost paying like $5 an egg. That's how bad it is even right now without any of this other stipulation coming through. As far as what Disney goes, I am concerned as well. I mean, Josh is just looking for a scapegoat, and I feel like this could possibly be it for him, because if the company then comes back and says, well, you didn't keep your promise, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, why should we consider you for CEO? Well, my hands are tied. This is the way I had to do it in order. Look how much, the spending is. And even Iger had mentioned in his quote that like when he brought up with the cruise line, that still, if it goes up to like an astronomical amount, they would have to scale back on the current 2 ships that they would be producing. That'll be part of the 13.
I think either scale back or they would have to increase prices. And people are already on edge on prices for Disney.
Right. Yeah. Exactly, Seymour. Now this article goes on to say, and this is great here, it says, a great point here. It says, in addition to importing a variety of raw materials that will be subject to massive tariffs, Walt Disney World and Disneyland will import entire ride systems. To the best of my knowledge, all of the major roller coaster manufacturers are based in Europe. Disney cannot and will not simply pivot to an American manufacturer that does not even exist, or make the ride system themselves. The cost in time and dollars would be greater than tariffs of an unknown duration. Instead, if the tariffs remain in place, Disney will pay more for the coasters, the ride systems, and variety of raw materials. This means that Monstropolis, for example, will get more expensive to construct. It's unlikely that the plans for the coaster itself change at this stage in the game, as reworking them would also be costly. What's more likely is that Disney will look to reduce investments elsewhere or cut corners on the project itself via unnecessary details or other elements that are deemed expendable, which is kind of what I was saying just a minute ago, where it's like, yeah, we'll still build it, but we're going to cut corners here, cut corners there, maybe axe this, maybe axe that. It's frustrating, man. We're finally getting like major investment in these parks, and this thing hits.
And honestly, they're already calling it to be even worse than the 2008 recession, because this is something on like astronomical, like it's not just focused on one country over the next, like it is involving a multitude of, countries, of imports, of exports, and what have you. And I'm with Seymour. I'm not against tariffs. I am also for them, but there's an appropriate time of when to use them and how to use them. You can't just cut everything off from everybody and then not have a plan in motion. It's almost like, in a sense, like with the video that Seymour shared with us, if there were American manufacturers that were, already implemented in this country, and you're like, okay, we're going to slowly pivot into, transitioning, here's what we'll do, work with the other countries, when you kind of have this big man on campus chip on your shoulder, like, everything, when basically you don't know nothing. I hate to put it in that way, but it's a fact. It's not me hating on anybody. It's not me, pinning one side to the other side. Whether a person is Republican, Democrat, liberal, independent, conservative, whatever, if you go this route, this is the outcome that you're going to get. Like the stock market was crashing today. It was like all in red. And I mean, even Elon Musk is like, second guessing like of what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah, the stock market today was weird. It's so on edge to the point where any news, it brought it back up, and then any news, bad news, brought it back down. Somebody posted fake news that they were going to put pause 90 days of tariffs on every country, right? That Trump said that. And apparently that was fake news. And CNBC actually had to correct everyone, saying, no, we contacted the White House, and that wasn't the case. And then the stock went down again. And that's how on edge everyone is. You have Bill Ackman freaking out every day, posting every 5 minutes these like school essays of like why it's bad. And now he's throwing Trump's advisors under the bus, saying that something is not right here. This isn't the Trump I know. Something is happening. That, and now you have even Elon, right, freaking out, talking about how we should just do free trade. It's gone to the point where everyone is like on edge with this, and it's not good. It's not good for the U.S. economy. It's not good for economy all around the world as well.
Right.
But I just wanted to state, like, for example, if we did like some of the manufacturing in the U.S., right? Unfortunately, like we said, there's no factories, and on top of that, there's a shortage of labor workers in the U.S. The top jobs currently right now is like tech, service, creative, and healthcare. Not labor workers, unfortunately. So, so, which brings me to one point is that I do give props for Disney with their creative side, trying to do everything in house and not outsource as many. So I just want to state that because we are talking about tariffs and how companies, sometimes go to other countries. There's one thing that Disney does well is that they do a lot of the creative stuff in house and they don't outsource. Unfortunately, other companies, even Universal, they outsource. That's why you get a $100 million Super Mario Brothers movie and not a $250 million because of you outsourced.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of people in our YouTube space who like would complain about that, right? Like, oh, the Disney stuff is really expensive, and it is. I get it, but then what's the other option? Like, because a lot of those people are also the same people that would want it to be done in America. So it's like, well, there's a reason why the Universal, like a Minion movie or like a DreamWorks movie, costs so cheap, is because the budgets are so low. A large reason for that is because it isn't in the U.S. Like you were saying, Seymour, they outsource the hell out of that stuff. Disney really doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Disney, it's still a California-based animation studio. I know they have one satellite office or studio in, was it Vancouver or something? Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. But by and large, the bulk of what Disney does is in America. And that's not the case with a lot of animation nowadays, including Universal. It's not the case. That's why these budgets for a lot of these other studios are so much lower than Disney because of that.
But what I'm questioning, when Iger made the statement, like they may have to pull back, or they may have to reduce, when he was primarily mentioning about the Disney Cruise Line, how do you cut back on a cruise ship without it meaning not completing it? Does that mean cutting certain features,
not making it a cruise? I think it's just basically you have to I think how many cruises they were saying 7 more new cruises, 5 to 7.
Right now, let's see, the Destiny is almost completed. They just finished the Treasure. OLC is going to be doing their own, but they'll be paying for their own. And then there's 4 more, but right now they're working on 2 out of the 4.
Yeah, but if they were working on 4 more, probably they just work on 2 or 1 more instead. They're they're gonna pull back from making much more, because those 4 now will cost as much as maybe even 1 now with all these tariffs, unfortunately. And then they would have to increase prices just to ensure that the cost that they all paid will go back to the consumer. And that's the thing I don't like about tariffs, that I think people don't understand, is that it is a tax on the consumer. And at the end, the importer, it gets back to the consumer, the tax. So all this stuff that happens to these companies, they will have to make money somehow, and it will go back to us. Small businesses won't afford it. They will go out of business, unfortunately. The bigger companies, Apple, Disney, even Tesla, if they have parts that are from other countries. If prices go up for us as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm kind of shocked at this whole situation. I'm curious to see how it all shakes out, because I feel like it's such a mess, like you were saying, Seymour, and there's so much uncertainty. The stock market doesn't like it. You can tell. How is it all going to shake out? How are we going to, is it going to go through, or do you think Trump will backpedal? Like, what do you think, Seymour? Do you think it's possible that we see a backpedal on this, or?
Nobody knows. That's why the market is going crazy, because nobody knows what's happening. At first, they thought, oh, this was just a bully trying to get what he wanted. But
Right.
now it just seems like, oh no, he might actually do this. And it's not about making deals, it's about doing it. But then, flip flop, like his advisors are flip flopping on what the actual narrative of what's happening, because I'm very confused. And the market is confused, and everyone is confused. Bill Ackman is, again, confused. When you have Bill Ackman crying on X every day, something is bad is happening, because if they're freaking out, because he owns Nike, and Nike has gone over 50% down since he bought. Nike primarily goes in Vietnam. He's freaking out because Nike might have to go out of business, because it's going to wipe out 80% of their profits. And if Nike goes out of business, that means everyone who works in the U.S. will have to get laid off too. And, it's like a domino effect. Right?
Well, yeah, it's a domino effect, because then what happens to retail is already struggling.
Yeah.
So now what
Nike-
happens with all those
exactly.
retail shops now with Nike and all that?
Yeah.
Now they're impacted.
Yeah, Nike is already impacted already badly with the retail sector. You're correct, yes. And now you're just adding it more to it when they weren't even doing great. Yeah, Nike would basically go out of business, or they have to raise prices, but they weren't selling already that great. So it's like you're raising prices on things that people didn't want to buy. People don't want to buy. It was estimated that a T-shirt made in the U.S. that would cost $2, right, will cost $30 here in the U.S. because they don't have the materials, they don't have the stuff to make the T-shirts. They have to make it out of thin air because they don't have it yet. Farmers and stuff, they have to do these things, and then on top of that, you have to create factories that don't exist to do it, and then on top of that, you need workers in the labor force that's already a shortage because nobody wants to actually really work in there. It's so bad that there's apparently the job openings for the labor force is bigger than the unemployment in the U.S.
Oh my gosh! He's created such a mess with this.
What I am trying to understand too is that even if he decides not to revert back, when does the other 3 out of the 4 corners of the U.S. government step in?
Well, yeah,
I don't know. This has never happened before. We don't. Nobody knows. The market doesn't know. That's why everyone's like all freaking out, because we don't know. At first, when I heard about these tariffs, first it was about Canada and Mexico. It was about fentanyl. It was about immigration, right? And then it was about, oh, we need to bring back manufacturing because Canada is stealing our car companies, right? But then now it's like, no, it's manufacturing all over the world. And then it was like, oh no, it's about making a fair deal because every other country was tariffing the US. So we're going to tariff them, not realizing that the harm that it's going to do for every company, because there's no plan in effect, as we discussed. But then it's like, which one is it? Even their advisors who go on Fox Business and CNBC have been flip flopping their reasoning. They don't even know what the reasoning is. The market doesn't know what the reasoning is. It's just a big, like I said, a big sloppy mess. It should have been prepared ahead of time. They should have spoken to these countries, their government officials, these businesses. You should have had meetings with Apple, Tesla, Disney, even Nintendo right now, right? And the gamers are now affected because every popular games, especially the people who the go woke, go broke crowd, right? Who are now focusing more on the Japanese video games instead of the the Americanized video games because apparently they think it's woke. Apparently because a chin has been made, it's woke, but chin has been changed significantly. It's woke, but yeah,
that's a woke chin. It's pretty woke. That chin is pretty woke. Can't say.
Now they getting taxed for it, right? And the thing is, in the end, it really only affects the U.S. primarily. For me, Canada, I can pre-order the Nintendo Switch too. It's not been delayed. I can buy it. I don't have to get the tariffs. because I live in Canada. But in the US, it's been delayed, and Nintendo doesn't know what to do yet because they don't know. They don't know what's happening. They don't know what Trump is going to do. They don't know if they moved their factory work from China to Vietnam, right? To ensure that, because there was concerns of China, uh, with the trade war, which is happening right now. So they moved it, and yet still Vietnam gets taxed
And
with a
even
tariff.
if Trump was to revert it, or Congress steps in, or whatever, something, so much damage has already been done, because we don't even know, like, if these countries are going to even want to even do business with us anymore, that we could, as a country, can flip on a dime and do this again. Are we even trustworthy to these other countries to even do business with? I mean, it's going to take probably a lot of negotiating and begging and pleading to whoever needs to do this. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree with you there. I actually saw some videos, and this is where it gets weird. I don't like Andrew Tate. I'm not the biggest fan of Ben Shapiro, but if I'm agreeing with them with these situations, something weird is going on. Like even Andrew Tate was saying that, like, you work with other countries where they do their best at, where they have assets where they can leverage you to help your businesses in the US. So for like manufacturing, right? So if you wanted to make a phone or something, or shoes or something, or clothing, where you can make it in China, right? They help you so that you can create businesses, do well in the US, because they have specialized employees who can do that, and unfortunately the US does not. Same with Canada. There's a lot of car companies in Canada that can specialize these things. There's things they're all interweb, and the ironic thing is that all this trade deal stuff was already, you know, ended. Like it was all signed up and ended in 2016 when Trump was president, but now he's bringing it back again as if that was a bad deal that he did.
Well, and you had mentioned China Seymour, and before we started recording, we were talking about, like, even going back to with Disney, that a lot of this would hit more of mainland China, where that's Shanghai Disney is, and um, I had asked you, before, but I'll bring it up for the sake of recording. Like, can China just up and abandon Shanghai Disneyland if they wanted
Oh,
to?
yeah, they can because they're China. They can do that. They're in set if it again, not to get too political, but there's no way of going around it. If the U.S. wants to bring businesses into their companies, I mean their country, for bringing their businesses to in their economy,
Yeah.
and but you're not allowing China might retaliate and do the same thing. So
It's essentially, like, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Seymour, it's essentially an economic act of war.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a big ass trade war, and right now China just replied, saying that they are going to continue the trade war fight, and Trump threatened them with more tariffs, so they're like, we'll add more tariffs as well. And
This is
the thing,
crazy.
And
and the
honestly,
thing
it's so
is,
very childish, like the way that this is all going about. It's like, act like adults respectively, and like sit and talk, and it's like this back and forth, tit for tat, cat and mouse kind of game. Like, it's just very childish and juvenile to me.
Yeah. No,
and
absolutely.
and unfortunately, like, this whole thing, I think it's going to affect the U.S. the most out of this. I don't think China is need the U.S., and unfortunately, a lot of businesses right now need those factories in China because there's no time to pivot to other, like we saw in the video. There's no time. We can't go to other countries and do it when plans haven't been made, especially in the U.S. when there's no factories. And I don't know. I feel like it might, if it escalates, it can escalate to the point where Tesla, Apple, and Disney gets banned in the U.S. Not U.S. China, because they're a U.S. company.
And how would this, like, affect, like, movie studios and the film
Yeah, they
industry?
would just primarily get banned. Like in COVID, they were temporarily banned as well. There was a lot of Marvel movies that were banned. Um, I remember even Spider-Man: No Way Home was banned from China
Right.
If they were willing just to ban it during that time, imagine now with the escalation of the tariffs and the trade war.
It's a mess, you guys, and it's sad because it impacts. And I know, like people at home, I know this seems like politics, and it is politics, but it directly impacts you as a consumer, you as a fan. If you're a Disney Parks fan, if you're a movie fan, it affects every aspect of the nerdy shit that we love, big time. You know what I'm saying? Big time. So this is a big deal. It's also going to affect job. I mean, this is really going to. Oh, God, it's so frustrating because it's such a self-inflicted wound. It's ridiculous. And like I'm all for bringing more jobs to the U.S. I think that's what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to do it the right way, though. It's like, what? It's like this, right? On a personal level, right? If you have a job that you hate, right? You work in a 9 to 5, you hate that job. You don't just like, well, I hate it, I'm just gonna quit and have no plan. And then when I find a new job, I'll find a new job. No, you usually you map it out, right? Like, so I don't have a job. I mean, I have a job I don't like, so I'm gonna look for a new job or whatever, and then I will go in. Then I can quit my old one. So that's what this whole thing feels like. It feels like this abrupt decision. Well, we're just going to do it. And then, I'll just let the universe decide where we end up. Like, come on. You have to map.
Okay, can we get off my ex-wife for a minute and go back to the conversation?
Your ex-wife. Yeah, exactly. Oh, shit, George. You made an ex-wife joke. Hold on. Absolutely. And, wait, hold on. No, I'm jumping the gun here. It's only one. Okay, so we have one ex-wife joke. But you know what I'm saying, though? Like, you have to, like, getting a new job is a good thing, but you have to do it responsibly, right? Getting more jobs in the U.S. is a good thing, but you have to do it responsibly. You can't, there's a way to do it. There's a way not to do it. It doesn't work, What say you, George? I mean, what do you think, brother?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's just people who can hack it with a lot of like, trades and conversations and, kind of going back and forth. And unfortunately, I feel like that, again, not to get on the political side, I'm just giving my opinion and honestly of what it's looking like, that it just seems like that's not one of Trump's strong fortes, so to speak. It's just like kind of do like this knee-jerk reaction. It's like, okay, well, we have to do this. We have to do that. I get where he's trying to go with it, but you have to go through to start at A, you have to go through B, C, D, E, F to get to Z.
Yeah, the way in which you get there matters. You can't just like, you have to be strategic about this stuff. And I feel like this is very messy, and it's gonna hurt a lot of industry, unfortunately. So
Yes,
hopefully more sane heads will prevail and we can get this under control. Go ahead, Seymour.
And I agree with you guys when you were mentioning just a few moments ago how it will tarnish the U.S. as a whole for trust with other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have now Japan, South Korea, and China talking to each other, making deals. And that has not happened for like many, many years. That's how serious it's getting because they can't rely on the U.S. anymore. So they're now working, like there's been talks about Canada joining the EU, making a deal with them because, again, unfortunately, I don't want to be political, but there's always been talks about how Canada is going to be the 51st state in the U.S., but nobody's asking for that.
Yeah. How would you feel about that, Seymour?
No, nobody's asking for that. I want to be look, I'm happy where I am. I have a job. My expenses are low. I'm blessed of what's happening with me, but unfortunately, a lot of people around me are getting affected dramatically. Even my mother just got laid off 3 weeks because of these tariffs. It's unfortunate for me. I'm blessed for everything. I see the stock market go down. I'm buying in, but unfortunately, I see a lot of people getting affected outside the U.S., in the U.S., and it's not good. It's not good. And like I said, I think countries are all around the world, especially the EU. If it gets worse and worse, you might see like even specialty tax. Canada tried to do it. I don't agree with it. EU's trying to do it. I don't agree with it. Where you put taxes on U.S. digital services, like Disney Plus, Facebook, X, Netflix, because either they have to provide money to the country's journalists or the media companies, or create more content in that country. For example, in Canada, they say we'll have to provide you a tax unless you create more content in the Canada based on Canadian culture, things like that.
Interesting.
And because so that's what's happening. So if all these tariffs are happening, that might push and escalate even further. Even the UK is thinking about adding like a tax to all streaming services, just like they do currently with the BBC, because they pay like a yearly fee for
Yeah.
TV. They don't have commercials there, and they're thinking of adding every US company in there, and that's almost like a tax as well. They're all doing these taxes, and it's going to harm the companies, because now imagine if you got taxes on Amazon, right? You got taxes on Facebook, you have taxes on Netflix, Disney Plus, where they were already trying, like even Disney Plus just made profitability, right? And now you're going
Right.
to put like a 20% like digital tariff tax because they're not producing enough content in that country or the area that's being shown. So now you're getting taxed. It's not good.
It's
So
not
then
good. And that's
that
an
means-
American company that you're hurting right there. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
all
It's
because
terrible.
it's been escalated. It's this escalated to this big sloppy mess.
I'm worried. I'm concerned, but I'm gonna kind of try to stay optimistic and positive
Oh.
that something good is gonna happen, where like something gets fixed, and we kind of get ourselves out of this before we get into the trenches too deep. I have to be able to keep myself sane with
Oh.
Well, I think his own party will, because Republicans have businesses and all kinds of stuff too. I mean, they don't want they don't want an economic collapse or situation, right? So I think the more this goes on, you're going to see people around him and his own party really kind of step in and be like, hey, we gotta rethink this. That's just my opinion. I think it kind of has to at this point. Go ahead, Seymour.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the uncertainty is like off the charts to the point where in 2 weeks we probably all forget about this and everything's already been cleared off. Everything's all good. We don't know what's gonna happen, but that's how
Right.
everyone I feels like
It's
is
the
on edge
unknown
with.
that we're all
the
kind of-
unknown. Yeah, the stock market will go up and down like crazy because they don't know what's happening. And like today, like I said, there was fake news. There was a pause on tariffs for 90 days, and the stock market went up like 5%, and then went down to zero after the CNBC said it was fake.
Seymour, do you think? I mean, even though it was fake news, do you think that was like kind of a beta tester to kind of see, like, to show proof that if it was that the tariffs were to be held, to say, hey, look what would happen to the stock if we don't go through with these
like weather ballooning it to kind of throw it out there and see. What do you think about that?
No,
Seymour?
I think somebody at a financial company spread misinformation. I don't think it was beta testing. I think somebody, I forget which company. I saw a screenshot, but was it Goldman Sachs? It was a company. They sent out an email, and everyone spread it like wildfire because.
Well, I do hope that they still take that into consideration, that to kind of show proof that if those tariffs are put on hold or maneuvered differently or canceled out and reworked and redone, that hey, here's the proof in the pudding that the stock market will go up.
I don't know. When the stuff I hear from Trump saying that there's going to be short-term pain, take your medicine. I don't know.
Gosh, dude, it's crazy out there, man. I mean, that's crazy. This is impacting real people. This is impacting jobs, impacting entire businesses. Take your medicine. It's like, come on.
Yeah,
I hate that.
Here's an enema.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's crazy. But guys, fantastic conversation. This is crazy stuff. This is a new story that we'll probably be talking about at least for a little while longer. We'll see how it all pans out. But I mean, in terms of Disney, as Disney Parks fans, as Disney movie fans, it could greatly impact the products that we love. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, speaking of which, Seymour, maybe you would know this. The quarterly earnings will be coming up soon. Now, if God forbid, knock on wood, something were to go down even further, what quarter would you roughly say that would be affected the most, like to the start, unless something gets resolved?
Well, the tariffs haven't been started yet, so it would be this month. It would be this month. So this is actually the first month. So yeah, this will be the first. Yeah, okay. So the next quarter. Yeah, so this would be the first month, but the next earnings will not be affected for it because it would start for January and March, right?
Right.
Quarterly earnings at 3 months, right? So the first 3 months, but Disney, which I'm liking the transparency, has been given outlooks like beyond just the next few months. They've been giving out years, right? And if the next earnings, they might give an outlook on future potential earnings. And if the tariffs are in place, we don't know yet. Flip-flopping everywhere, it's a mess. If it does happen where the tariffs are in place, everyone is impacted to the point where it's next earnings, then yeah, we'll see Disney talking about it. Especially Hugh Johnson, he's been very transparent. I like him, and he's been talking about like even down to like 2027 numbers, and he's talking about the future. And he's been transparent, saying that yes, there's going to be days where parks are weakening, and then he wants the shareholders to know that we're not here to hide behind a bush, which is what I wanted in the first place, which I didn't get from Bob Iger. This is why I sold my shares, but now they're getting that transparency. They're getting that. So if you see the earnings next time and tariffs are there, you'll see news about being impacted.
Okay, so Seymour, you say that he won't hide behind a bush, but how about a Clinton or an Obama?
Oh. There we go. Great joke, George. Well done, sir. That was chef's kiss. Absolute chef's kiss. George, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you could also check out my new YouTube channel, Citrico Central, sister channel to Orange Grove 55.
And when you said the Bush thing, I thought you were going to go in a totally different direction, knowing you.
Yeah.
So, but you didn't. You went in a different direction, and it paid off. It paid off well.
Yes,
that was
thank
good.
you. Yeah, I had to keep on to the conversational brand at hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, yeah, with Clinton though, you would have kept on brand even if you would have went the other direction.
That is true.
Absolutely, Mr. C. Moore Duck. Love the new profile picture. I love it. Absolutely amazing.
Oh,
if you could it looks fantastic. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, Mr. Duck.
Oh yeah, you can find me at X at Mr. Seymour Duck or on my website, mrduck.social, for all my social media links. But before I go, if you guys need a Nintendo Switch, just let me know. I can smuggle you in.
There we go.
Canada doesn't have the tariffs, so I can get the cheaper Switches.
We go.
You might have to get in contact with Mr. Webba, because I'm for sure he'll probably want one.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for watching this episode of OG55. Comment down below. I know it's a little political, so keep it civil in the comments, but no matter what side of this you're on, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear all opinions. Just keep it nice. That's all we ask. Thank you for watching this episode of OG55, and until the next time.
Thank you for watching OG55. If you aren't already, consider becoming a member today.